We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live boxing ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live.
I got some bad news. He may have made a mistake. Jaron Boots Ennis might have to rematch an opponent that I know for a fact you don't want to see him fight. You know why? Because it was perhaps one of Jaron's worst performances against a guy who really wasn't coming to win. And he goes by the name of Karen. Make sure you guys follow me on social media. Let's get into it. Ego rumor mill. The IBF has ordered a rematch between Jaron Boots Ennis and Karen. Now, I don't even know his last name. I don't really care about his last name, to be honest. And I'm not going to try to slaughter his. I'm not good with last names, so I don't want to try to slaughter it. But Karen C. If you guys remember, he was on a fight card with Tank. Tank, I believe, was fighting Hector Luis Garcia, and Jaron Ennis and Demetrius Andrade were on the card. This is the guy. And if you remember, there were high expectations for Jaron Ennis. People weren't really familiar with this Karen C guy, but he was a rated guy. And the Karen C was kind of like, almost like a Madrimov, if you will, where he was like using a lot of movement. He was hard to pinpoint and track down. And it really, the two styles combined, you have the antsiness of a youthful Boots, and he's normally pretty aggressive, combined with an evasive, kind of elusive, agile guy who didn't mind stinking up the joint, didn't mind utilizing his legs in the Karen C guy. And it just made for a bad fight. Jaron Ennis, I think there was a point in the fight where he hurt Karen, but Karen having a beard and having that style, that kind of herky-jerky move with you style, he was able to weather the storm. And then it was a decision win. And this is some shots from it for Jaron Ennis, who won the fight via decision. Now, the IBF ratings, because I told you, you got to keep in mind the current landscape of the welterweight division is abysmal right now. There's not that many great fights in general in this particular division, which is weird because historically the welterweight category has birthed, Sugar Ray Leonards and Durans, Oscar De La Hoyas and Pacquiao's and Shane Mosley. They've had a lot of talent, and it's been a very talent-full division and a talent-packed division. But just like other divisions, sometimes they rule for a period of time and then they lay dormant other times because guys outgrow the division, guys end up losing or retiring, and you have these different shifts where people, for one reason or another, they end up migrating to, I'm a commentator now, I'm retired. Like we just had Chris Van Herding, who fought in this division. He just announced his retirement, right? And then you have other guys like Virgil Ortiz, who he can't make 147 no more, so he's at 54. You got guys like Terrence Crawford, who he's like, I did everything. 147 is hard to make. I'm at 54 now. Same thing with Errol Spence. He can't really make 47. So now it's kind of like a great value division. So I understand the talent pool isn't as thick as you would want it, but it is what it is. This is the IBF ranking. Jaron Ennis is the champion. He got elevated to, and see, that's another thing. We'll stick to that. So Crawford still has the WBA, and the WBC is held by Barros, and Crawford still has the WBO. Actually, this is outdated because Brian Norman is actually the champion. So once this gets updated, it'll show Brian Norman, right? The IBF ordered Karen, this is his last name, Chukhadzhian, right? He's the number 1 rated person. And then number 2 spot is vacant, not rated. Then you have Conor Ben. Then you have Jen. So just look at the IBF rankings. Outside of Conor Ben and knowing the Karen dude, because he already fought Jaron Ennis, none of these are good big names for Boots Ennis. Jen, whatever, Suzuki or whatever this guy's name is. Lewis Crocker, Patty Donovan, Alexis Rocha, who I believe he just recently lost. I know Speedy Ellis beat him. Yeah, he lost to Santillan not too long ago. Gabriel Valenzuela, Nicholas Flaws, Shakaram Jayasov. You know what I mean? Like David Papat. These aren't known people. These aren't big fights for Boots. But listen, this is the time in which Boots is at welterweight, and he signed with Eddie Hearn. It's Eddie Hearn's sole responsibility as promoter to try to do something with Boots. The way of, in my world, trying to do something with Boots is not to take this fight with the Karen C guy. The first fight was bloody awful. It was not fun to watch. So why on earth would I even want to see that again? Why would I want to see this fight again and the first fight was terrible, right? Certain styles gel well and other styles don't. So more than likely, if this fight comes off, they'll end up putting this fight in Philly, trying to milk the Philadelphia populace, because Jaron did good numbers with David Avocado, and they probably have nowhere else to put this where this fight will make money. So Eddie Hearn, knowing what I know about him, knowing his moves are oftentimes telegraphed, that's what I could see happening. If he fights Karen, look for it to be in Philly, because again, they had good numbers with David Avocado, and this is just a fight that no one's desiring. So who are you going to give it to? It reminds me of Terrence Crawford when he was fighting like John Molina with Top Rank. Just wasn't a fight that people needed. Broner had already beat John Molina, so you had to put it in Omaha, where Crawford is from. Same scenario. This is not a great fight. And some people are getting found out now. A lot of people praise Riyadh's season in Turkey, saying, oh, he's making the best fights and make boxing great again. And people praise Eddie Hearn, say, oh, he's the best promoter and stuff like that. Well, you got a guy who was on his way up the ladder, an American name, great fighter in Jaron Ennis. The only thing holding him back from superstardom is compelling fights. That's it. He passes the eye test. He has a good look. He comes from a fight town. The only thing holding him back is he hasn't fought nobody that would catapult him to the next level. So as far as I'm concerned, just look at it. If Jaron Ennis fights this Karen C guy, I don't care if it's a mandatory, right? Then why did he team up with Eddie Hearn? Why? Like, what? This is a fight PBC already did. This is a fight that Showtime already did. What's the point? So basically, to get overpaid for a fight like this, because that's likely what Eddie Hearn had to do to lure Bozy and Jaron Ennis over to rematch room. I don't really see it. To me, this is a regression instead of progression. You were working with Showtime. You weren't actually signed to PBC, but you were close to them. You then become a free agent, take this deal from Eddie Hearn at rematch room, and then also Turkey says he wants to work with you. But then your first fight is a guy Crawford already beat by violent stoppage a year or so ago before the Arrow fight. And then now you might fight a guy that you literally already beat and it wasn't a good fight. Good luck marketing that. And it's the same thing. As Shakur might work with Eddie Hearn, they're talking about Shakur Stevenson versus Joey Cordona or something. Cordina. Who asked for any of these fights? Then Turkey, he said that he wants to make Virgil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis. And for me, based on how the Boachuk fight with Ortiz went, I don't think that a Crawford fight needs to happen with Virgil Ortiz. But I think Jaron Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz would be a sensational fight. But it seems like possibly Boots' team, they're like, we want to unify and we want to become undisputed at 47, but 47 is dry. The bigger opportunities for you are clearly at 154. They're not necessarily with Eddie Hearn, but the bigger names are up there, you know? So I don't really understand this quest. Boots is he's a big dude for 47. I don't understand staying at 47 if these are the types of fights you're going to get. Now, Eddie Hearn did say they've sent a substantial offer to Mario Barros. I'm trying to tell you how this game works. I know y'all want me to be wrong. You guys think that I just say stuff and I'm just joshing and talking. Watch how this plays out. Will you? So easy for me to see. It's so easy for me to read. You got to be able to keep up. You got to be able to keep up. I see the play a million miles away. Eddie Hearn is a promoter from the Great Britain. He's never made an American star. So when Boots Ennis signed with Eddie Hearn, this is what I said. This is why I was apprehensive. And when I said these things, you guys said, oh, you're hating on Boots. Eddie's going to keep him active. And I said, activity is one thing, but what about the big fights? What about securing him the big fights? Who cares if a guy's fighting 4 times a year, but his level never increases? His opponent in opposition never increases. It increases. We know Boots Ennis is a great fighter, but to see how great he truly is, or if he's next level special, he needs an opportunity in the form of an opponent. That's how everybody did it from Oscar De La Hoya. He needed Julio Cesar Chavez to show his greatness. Shane Mosley needed Oscar De La Hoya to show he was great. Floyd Mayweather needed De La Hoya's and Diego Corrales's to show his greatness, that he was ready for the world. He had to beat the Gennaro Hernandez's, right? Manny Pacquiao had to beat the Eric Morales's, the Berettas, the Laduabas, rest in peace, to show you that I'm that dude. Jaron doesn't even look like he's getting any closer. Peep the setup, peep the play. So Eddie Hearn being a promoter, I see it a million miles away. He's throwing out Mario Barros. He doesn't have a great relationship with PBC and Al Heyman. He has a contemptuous relationship. In fact, the only time I really noticed Eddie Hearn having any part with the PBC fight is if it's decided and then he just happens to be involved. For example, he happens to have Edgar Berlanga, and Canelo, being the boss, is working with Heyman and picked Berlanga. So that's the only reason he's kind of along for the ride, if you will, right? So he's saying he sent a substantial offer to Mario Barros. If you don't believe me, just wait and we will see how this plays out. I don't think Jaron Ennis versus Mario Barros will be next because he's a PBC fighter and he's the WBC champion. It would be a unification, yes, but at the same time, PBC has options. We've heard rumors that Manny Pacquiao could come back to fight Mario Barros. So that hasn't been ruled out. I don't care about his exhibition. As a comeback fight, that hasn't been ruled out. So you have that option. Plus, you have fights with Stanionis, who just re-upped with PBC. If you are PBC, a business, and you're working on your business, why would you make Jaron Ennis versus Barros your champion on another network when you could make Barros versus Stanionis on Amazon Prime? It doesn't make sense. So Eddie Hearn famously does this. He'll name drop, and then he knows the fight likely won't happen, or the offer will get crumbled up or whatever, because it's just not likely to happen. You're not in the driver's seat. You don't control other people's stable, right? So I highly doubt the Barrios fight happens. And then when Jaron Ennis is fighting Karen in Philly, or fighting Karen C next, then he'll do interviews, and Boots, his team, will probably do interviews saying, hey man, we have to fight Karen because nobody wants to fight us. We want to fight the best. We want to stay at 47 and unify and be undisputed. We sent Barrios an offer, but it's the same story. Top Rank did this to Floyd Mayweather for years. Pacquiao didn't want to take the test, blame Floyd Mayweather. Pacquiao's fighting Josh Clottey, fighting Jesse Vargas, Brandon Rios, Chris Algieri, fights that people didn't really need from Pacquiao or want, like Chris Algieri. Nobody was demanded that of Pacquiao, but they just blame Floyd. Hey, it's Floyd's fault. We want Pacquiao versus Floyd, but Floyd's chicken. We've seen this a million times in boxing, and I know I'm a genius, but how do you guys not pick up on it? Same thing when Demetrius Andrade was with Eddie Hearn. Clout chase, clout chase, clout chase. Talk about fighting Charlo and PBC guys. Can't make the fights for whatever reason. And then Andrade is fighting lackluster foreign fighters who have zero visibility or brand in America, like Lucas Keeler. So far, I'm not impressed at all. Not from Jaron Ennis as a fighter, but I'm not impressed with this matchmaking. You guys told me him signing to Eddie Hearn was going to be beneficial for his career, but he's not getting much greater opportunities. The only thing you might be able to say is he got a hometown fight and he's possibly getting overpaid for the level of opposition that he's fighting. That's it. But as far as legacy and making him a household name, making him a star in America, converting him, it's not going to happen with fights like this. And here's the thing. I don't want to see Boots versus Villa part 2 at all. There's no reason for the fight. But if it was up to me, I would rather see that again because it was a fun fight rather than this Karen guy because styles make fights. Or here's the thing. Guys like Deontay Wilder, who was willing to bet on himself and take his career in his own hand. You have Karen is rated number 1, and then 2 is not rated. The next highest rated person is Conor Benn. If Turki Al-Sheikh and Eddie Hearn have so much money, why not pay Karen step aside money? You know what Devin Haney did when he was trying to fight bigger fights with Ryan Garcia. So Devin Haney was like, I just have to get Sandor Martin off my back. And then the promotion or Devin or whoever had to pay off Golden Boy or whoever had to pay off Sandor Martin because he was the mandatory, because Devin wanted the bigger fight with Ryan Garcia. I mean, it didn't work out for him initially, but that's a long story. Why not do that here? Because like I said, when Jaron first signed to Eddie Hearn, about the best fight that we know Eddie Hearn has for Jaron Ennis would be Conor Benn. So that's the smart play, to somehow, some way get Karen out of the way, because this is going to be a very hard fight to sell. We've already seen it, and it wasn't great the first time. It's like doing a sequel to a movie and people hated the first movie. I mean, this is not like Fast and the Furious and the last one grossed 180 mil in the opening couple weeks. It was an abysmal fight. So Conor Benn seems to be the best option that's realistic outside of Boots moving to 54 to fight other options. And he's rated pretty high, but that seems too much like right. So the IBF ordered it. They're going to, between Barrios and the IBF ordering the Karen fight, they're going to act like, oh, we're beholden to it. There's nothing we could do. We have to fight Karen again. And I just don't see what that does for Boots Ennis. in his career. He needs fights that set the world on fire, and fighting a guy you already beat in a fight that was like very cat and mouse and not fun optically, I think that's going to be real hard to sell. But hey, you guys say I don't know anything. We gonna see. We're gonna see what these guys' next move. Subscribe.